Bonjour, c'est l'heure. It's time. Today we are going over time vocabulary, how to tell time in French. So telling time in French is very similar to telling time in English. The easiest way is always just going to be to say the numbers. You can say 8 o'clock. You can say 8:30, 8:22, 8:17, 8:59. Just saying 8 and then the number, right? But just like in English, there are other ways. Like you could say quarter till 8, 8:30, 5 till 8, and we're going to practice those ways too. So something that is important to keep in mind before we get started is that in France, they most commonly use the 24-hour clock, meaning that where we would say 1 p.m., they say 13 hours, okay? We're not going to practice too much with that. We're going to stick to practicing like midnight to noon, the morning time, but just be aware that they do use the 24-hour clock if you see it somewhere. If you see something like 17 o'clock, know that that means 5 p.m. Okay, so une horloge is a clock. Okay, that's where you're going to find the time. You could also find it on une montre, a watch. Okay, so une heure, 1 hour. So this literally means 1 hour of time. This is also the word that they use to replace what we use as o'clock. So we would say 8 o'clock. In French, you just say 8 heures, 8 hours. And then that means that it is 8 o'clock. So just like in English, if you're talking about 1 hour, this is singular. If it's 2 heures, 2 hours, 2 o'clock, then you would have an S on the end of that hour word. And then again, une minute, 1 minute. Il y a 60 minutes dans une heure. 60 minutes, 1 hour. Oui? Et plus petit, une seconde. 60 secondes dans une minute. Okay, so 12 a.m. Remember that 12 a.m. is midnight. En français, minuit. Minuit. 12 a.m. is midnight. Minuit. So if we're on the 24-hour clock, minuit is actually 0 hours. Then we have midi. Midi, midday, noon. Okay, so noon is 12 p.m. Midi. Du matin is in the morning, so this is what we would refer to as a.m. Et du soir at night, p.m. Okay, so just like in English, we would say quarter, you could say quarter after 8. If I wanted to say quarter after 8 in French, I would say 8 heures et le quart. So you're moving a quarter of an hour. So keep in mind the difference between a quarter of $1 and a quarter of an hour. An hour is 60 minutes. So a quarter of that hour is 15 minutes, not 25, okay? So quarter of an hour is 1/4 of that hour hand, et le quart. So if I wanted to say a quarter after 8, I would say 8 heures et le quart. Then you can also go minus a quarter. So moins le quart. So here our clock is almost, our hour hand is almost to the 10, and our minute hand is at the 9, so that's 45 minutes. So this means this is 15 till 10. So this time right here is 9:45. So you could say 9 heures 45, just the numbers, 9 hours 45. You could also say 10 heures moins le quart, 10 hours minus the quarter. So if you hear me say 10 heures, 10 o'clock, but then I say moins, minus, that means you're going back to 9 o'clock. So 10 heures moins le quart, 10 hours minus 15 is 9:45. You can do that with any other number as well. So just like in English, we could say 8 till 10 or like 5 till 10. Then I would start with that 10 o'clock and then moins, however many minutes till. So if I wanted to say 5 till 10, I would say 10 heures moins 5, minus 5. If I wanted to say half past, et demi. 8 heures et demi. Demi means a half, so that means 8 hours and a half. Okay, this is your question. Quelle heure est-il? Quelle heure est-il? Remember that QU sound? does not make a qua in English. It's not quel. It is quel, as if that QU is just a K. Quelle heure est-il? What time is it? This is going to be your flip grid question for later on in the lesson. Okay, so il est, it is how you start responding to that question. So, quelle heure est-il? You're starting your response with il est. Il est minuit. Il est 8 heures, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is how you write time, or your type time in French. So instead of that colon, that dot that we put between the hours and the minutes, they put a lowercase h to represent that word heure, which means o'clock or hours. So here we have 9h45, 9:45 o'clock. All right, these next few slides are just to help you practice reading time on those old analog clocks. Okay, so remember that we have the shorthand, which is the hour, and then we have the longhand, which is the minute. So this shorter hand for the hour is almost at the 10, but not quite. And each of these numbers on the clock represents 5 minutes. So 9 times 5 is 45. So this is 9:45. It is almost 10 o'clock. Roman numerals. So we have the hour hand on the 2 I's, which is 2, and then the minute hand on the 12. So that means it is 2 o'clock. We have our hour hand on the 10, and our minute hand almost at the 2. So we could say 10:10 or 10:09. I would accept that. Gonna give you a minute to try and figure this time out. 11h55, 11:55. Ooh, no numbers. Tricky, tricky. 4h, 4 o'clock. 4h04, 4:04. Okay, so these next ones, I want you to either have open a Google Doc or get out a piece of paper where you can write. We're going to do this as if it was a whiteboard activity. So on the screen, I'm giving you in French words a time, and then you write it in numbers. But make sure that when you're writing it, instead of putting the colon in between hours and minutes, that you're putting that H. So 9h, so 9H, 45. So that would be 9h45, 9 hours, 45 minutes. 11h moins le quart. So anytime I want you see that moins or hear that moins, I want you to pause and make sure that you're going back an hour from that first number. So even though that first number is 11h, we then see moins, which means we're going till. So instead of 11 hours, it is 10 hours, moins le quart, minus a quarter. So that means instead of that full 60 minutes, we're at 45 minutes. So our time is 10h45, 10 hours, 45 minutes. Anytime you see that moins minus any time of minutes, you are going back one number from that number written. Midi, noon. So 12h, 12 o'clock. So almost all of these ways to tell time in French are going to have more than one way. So I could say 12h, 12 hours, 12 o'clock. I could also say midi, noon. Both of those are the exact same time, just like in English. I can say noon or I can say 12. Minuit, et le quart. So remember, minuit on our 24-hour clock is midnight. So we are writing that as a 0. And then we don't have the moins, but we have a. So we are adding time here. We are adding le quart, which is a quarter of an hour, which is how many minutes? 15. So look how that midnight 15 is written. 0 hours, 15. So we're on the 24-hour clock here. 8h et demi. So 8h is 8 hours. Et demi, that demi is half. So half of 60 minutes is 30 minutes. 8h et demi. All my kids. Oh, look. 8h30. Is that the exact same time? Yes, it is. 2 different ways to write the exact same time, just like in English. I could say 8:30. I could say 8:30. 10h, 5. 10h05. So that 10 is 10, 5 is 5. Make sure you put your placeholder 0 there. 6h35. 6 hours, 35. So there doesn't always have to be a fancy, complicated way to say it. You can just say the numbers. 1h moins le quart. So 1h, 1 o'clock, minus a quarter. So in 24-hour time, we're going back to the 0, minus a quarter of an hour. So we're minusing 15 minutes from that 60. So we have 0:45, midnight 45. 1h et le quart. So 1h, we don't have a moins, so we keep our 1 hour. And now we're adding a quart. We're adding 15 minutes. So we have 1h et le quart. 10h moins 5. 10 hours. Oh, there's that moins word. So we're going to go back 1 hour to 9 hours. We're subtracting 5 minutes from 60 minutes. So we get 9:55. 9h55. 11h, 11 hours. 11 hours. Moins, there's that moins word. So we're going back 1 from 11 to 10. Moins 5, so we're taking 5 minutes off of that 60 minutes. So our time is 10:55. 7h35. Just saying the numbers here. So 7h35, 7:35. Just a couple more. Okay. 5h et le quart, and a quarter of an hour. So we're adding here 5:15. 10h07. 10 hours, 7 minutes. Make sure you get your placeholder 0. Okay, so I hope you have a little bit of a better understanding of time. I know your brain's gonna be like, what? But the most important thing is that you recognize it. So what you need to do now is make sure that you filled out the notes with those time vocabulary words. You have a time, and that you've turned those notes in. You have a time practice sheet in Canvas where you are gonna be given a time, and then you have to write it any 2 ways. So the easiest way is always gonna be just to say the numbers, 10 hours number. Like number, hour, number, right? Then you're going to figure out a separate way to say it with either and a half, quarter past, quarter till, 5 till, any of those other things that we've practiced. Then you're going to get on to the assignment in Flipgrid, and whatever time you answer that question is what you're answering it for. So the question in Flipgrid that you've been given is quelle heure est-il? What time is it? And then you say whatever time it is when you're recording your video. Okay? Bonne chance!